Hello and welcome. You're watching Tigrai television coming to you live from Mekelle. I'm Lalim Techano with today's news. Here are the details. Communicable diseases have been spreading like wildfire in Tigray, where essential commercial goods such as soap have been blocked from reaching Tigray. The crisis has especially affected displaced persons that have been forced to live in overcrowded facilities across the state. We spoke with administrators of IDP camps in Shirandaslase in northwestern Tigray, and he say camps have so far registered more than 8,000 cases of communicable diseases and more than 60 deaths related to illness and lack of food. For more, Sarah Kalal reports.
For more than a year now, Ethiopian forces have been undertaking an ethnic cleansing campaign in western Tigray. Having blocked the path to Sudan, the more than 1 million Tigrayans displaced from western Tigray have been forced to travel deeper into Tigray, where the Ethiopian government has discontinued basic services such as telecommunication, banking, as well as aid. First, there was only hunger, but the last 2 days her body started itching, and when she scratched her body started to bleed. I have to beg for food. I was out in the morning begging for food while the children were sleeping. There's nothing we can do. We're just breathing. We're just watching the sun rise and set. Look at her scratching her hands. It's going to bleed. The IDPs sheltered in repurposed facilities across the state have run out of options to fulfill basic needs such as food, while the lack of access to items such as soap and other sanitation materials is leading to a higher rate of communicable diseases.
This
camp is called Adi Kantiba. It shelters IDPs. In this camp alone, we have reported 1,424 cases for scabies. But when you look at the data from IDP camps across the state, there have been over 8,300 cases of scabies. People are also suffering from diarrhea and some others suffering from malaria and typhoid.
The coordinator said Tigray's collapsed health system, lack of food aid, and other essential items is devastating displaced communities, with 60,000 deaths recorded in the past 3 months alone.
Due to lack of food in the camp in Hezat, the district of Askada, more than 47 people have been reported dead due to lack of food and communicable illness. 13 people died in Shararo. This brings the total number to 60 people. We've also had more cases reported this week due to starvation.
More than 6.5 million people in Tigray are in dire need of humanitarian assistance as the Ethiopian government continues to block aid. An 8-month-long occupation of Tigray by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces, characterized by the deliberate destruction and looting of public and private properties, including health facilities, and a 9-month-long siege on the region that has blocked the entire of basic medical supplies, has led to the death and suffering of many. We spoke with Waldo Burhanu, who was ethnically profiled and arbitrarily detained by Ethiopian forces in the Har region. Shortly after his release, he had to travel for days to reach Tigray, at which point a simple injury had turned into a serious health complication that has changed his life for good. For more, Salome Takhla reports.
Waldo Burhanu is a father of 3 and currently residing in Mekelle. Before the start of the conflict in November of 2020, Waldo used to live in Bati, in southern Wallo in the Amhara region. He used to work for a company that used to export livestock. He says he had been able to provide a comfortable life for his family until he was ethnically profiled and arbitrarily detained by Ethiopian forces at the outset of the conflict.
I used to work in the Bureau of Agriculture in Tigray. After that, I started working in a private company that exports livestock such as sheep, cattle, and camel. We were working in Mille, and then we moved to Bati. While I was working there, they came and said all the materials in the company belonged to the junta. That I was a junta and arrested me. They decided to kill us, Tagaru. They killed one Tigrayan that was with us. I'm supposed to be dead too, but members of the Oromo Liberation Army were able to free us.
Waldo's agony doesn't end here. After having escaped from the hands of the Ethiopian forces, he had to travel on foot for 8 days. And he would travel in the woods to avoid Ethiopian forces that he feared would kill him if they were to get hold of him again. But because he wasn't able to receive appropriate care, what once seemed like a small scratch has required his right leg to be amputated.
after برغا ناي مجد شعت شمون تساعتنا خينا هذه صار نيرو ጫካ እዩ ወዲቀ شو منو يتفلطنن
I walked in the wilderness for 8 hours straight. It was dark. I fell down. I didn't know that I was injured then. The next day, I saw a cut on my toe. I had stayed in the wilderness for 8 days. It was a small scratch, but since I have diabetes, it kept on getting worse and worse. I spent so much money trying to get treated, but they told me that it had to be amputated. Then my toe was amputated. Even after then, it couldn't get better, so they had to amputate a large part of my leg. In this process, I finished all the money I had and what others gave me. Neighbors collect money for my treatment. I'm in a terrible situation.
The Ethiopian government's blockade on medical supplies coming into Tigray has meant that millions, like Waldu, in dire need of medication, are having to go without it. While the closing of banks and other essential services makes it impossible to afford alternative forms of care.
أما قال hospital بقى فارماسي يلن تعاوين طرحنا إنسولين خيكونه مدحنيسي ጭራሽ የለን
I went to Maqala Hospital, but the pharmacy has nothing. It's not just insulin that I couldn't find, but other medications I need. There is a severe shortage of medical supplies. I'm probably in a better condition as compared to others like me. I at least have neighbors to help me. Others have given up. What is sad is medication you buy at an expensive price is expired and not effective. I have to spend about 1,800 birr every 3 days. We are dying when we have money in the bank. The siege is killing us due to starvation and lack of medication.
Waldu feels ignored by the world that has failed to take action to end the man-made humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray. He has this to say to the international community.
I feel like the world does not care about us. I want the world to act. People are suffering. Humanitarian aid should always be available to those that need it. It is a matter of survival for us. This is not about politics. This is about saving innocent people.
The Ethiopian government's declaration of a humanitarian truce almost 3 weeks ago is yet to bear fruit for many like Waldu, who after months of waiting are yet to get the care they so desperately need.
Many patients suffering from chronic illnesses through continued medical treatment have been able to lead normal lives in Tigray. But the start of the siege has meant that many are no longer able to access medication, leading to severe complications. Our reporter Aragawi Gabramikael spoke with HIV-positive patients in Maqala that say that extreme stress and lack of medical supplies is devastating their community. Let's take a look.
Hiyot Brahana has been HIV positive for more than 20 years now. She says her health was well before the start of the siege that has blocked essential medical supplies and retroviral medication from reaching Tigray.
خزي دارقالا إسرائيل حدا عمتي يخدلوك إيه مدحنيت قبل جمرجن عاسرت شعنت عمتي.
I've been HIV positive for 21 years, and it's been 19 years since I started medication. Thanks to God, I had a good life, and I was never stressed. There were a lot of organizations that helped us in collaboration with the Bureau of Health, but after the war, aid has become unimaginable.
Hiyot said that lack of medication has forced her and many others like her to use expired medications and hope for a miracle.
I'm so afraid. It is really scary to be without medication. I've been taking expired medications for over 2 weeks now. I take it with holy water.
Before the start of the conflict, Hiyot says she used to work in a non-governmental organization to support others like her.
After I became member of Mahabar Walado, I was the first volunteer to give door-to-door care for HIV-positive patients.
Hiyot says she used to be hopeful before the war broke out, but now she is constantly afraid that she will not be able to access medication.
I sometimes just collapse. I've so far fainted twice at home. I discussed it with a counselor, and we think it may be because of stress. I don't know how I'm going to go on without medication. What am I going to eat tomorrow? And what if the siege continues any longer? I don't sleep at night.
According to her, dozens of HIV positive patients in her association have already passed.
It's not only medicine. We're also suffering from lack of food. 80 to 90 members die due to lack of medication and food.
According to the World Health Organization, close to 4 million people in Tigray are in dire need of medical care, as millions more continue to suffer due to lack of food.
The past 18 months of the conflict has been characterized by gruesome acts of violence against Tigrayans, but despite the presence of overwhelming evidence to indicate that genocide is in fact being committed in Tigray, the international community, including rights groups, have failed to call it by its name, which may be why the international community has so far failed to act. For more, Saron Zagai reports.
The past 18 months of conflict in Tigray have seen unspeakable atrocities being committed on innocent civilians. The first 8 months are characterized by massacres, mass and arbitrary detention, torture, deliberate destruction of food items and the slaughter of livestock, and the destruction of schools, health centers, and other infrastructure, followed by 10 months long siege that has blocked essential items such as food and medicine from reaching those in need. But the atrocities in Western Tigray have been even more gruesome, where Ethiopian and Eritrean forces have continued their occupation, killing, torturing, and displacing Tigrayans.
We heard that they were coming. My family ran away, but I didn't. I stayed to gather my livestock and my irrigation equipment. At 5 o'clock, both the Ethiopian and Eritrean troops came to our area. There were also tanks. When they started shelling, I stopped what I was doing and ran away as well.
While running away, we were separated from our families, so we were running in darkness. Some of us are still unable to find some members of our family.
After having turned Western Tigray into a living hell for Tigrayans, Ethiopian forces blocked the route to Sudan, forcing more than 1 million Tigrayans displaced from Western Tigray to travel deep into the region, where the Ethiopian government has discontinued basic services such as telecommunication and banking, as well as blockade on aid.
I feel like no man in uniform is safe for them. A combination of ethnic Amhara militias from the Amhara ethnic group allied with the government, soldiers from neighboring Eritrea, soldiers from the Fano Amhara ethnic militia. Even here in Hamdaet, just a few months ago, this was a safe haven for Tigrayans. There were so many refugees that were able to cross here. Now they're describing to us a toxic mix of all of those forces, the ethnic militia, the Fano militia, the Eritrean soldiers, blocking them just from across the river from where we're standing here, from coming to safety. Even here in Hamdaet, they feel that shadow, Jake. They feel that fear.
But till this day, and despite the magnitude of the suffering that has been inflicted on Tigrayans, international organizations, including major human rights groups, have so far failed to call what is unfolding in Tigray by its name: genocide. The Rome Statute to establish the International Criminal Court says when the group kills, causes serious bodily or mental harm to a certain ethnic group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and imposing measures intended to prevent births within the ethnicity are acts considered genocide. Every single act mentioned above were committed in Tigray. The reservation of the international community to refer to what is unfolding in Tigray by its name is no more evident than in the most recent report by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch that revealed the extent of the violence on Tigrayans in Western Tigray in an attempt to ethnically cleanse the area. Acts the human rights group said amounted to war crimes and crimes against humanity, but not genocide. Something human rights expert Mabrahatom Fitui identifies as a major shortcoming.
As you can see in the investigation, there is murder, there is massacres, there is torture. Almost all the elements of all the acts of genocide have been fulfilled, and they have been termed or they have been considered as ethnic cleansing. And so ethnic cleansing, the one who is claiming that it is ethnic cleansing shall believe that the mental element is not fulfilled. However, in the case at hand, the mental element can be easily proved. without going far, without going to any other indications, simply from the actors themselves.
History tells us accountability and justice is an essential element of peace and reconciliation anywhere in the world, a sustainable solution to centuries' worth of animosity and conflict in the Horn.
Our reporter visited the small village of Azraga in Tahta Diabo in northwestern Tigray, where residents say that the destruction of a milling house by Eritrean forces has exacerbated humanitarian situation, forcing many to go without food. For more, Kubram Wuldoburhan has this report.
Taglabraham Berha is a resident of Atsarga, vicinity located in Tahta Adiabu district. Last year, during the invasion of the district by the Eritrean forces, his property was looted and deliberately destructed by the soldiers.
This used to be a store. The soldiers came and looted all the properties they can, then bombed and burned down the rest they couldn't take. We ran away in the morning, abandoning all our properties behind. The troops burned it down at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I started to do this business in 2011, and I used to feed 8 people in my family. But now I have lost everything I had.
Taglabrahan's grand mill that used to give service for the community for more than 10 years has been vandalized by the invading forces.
There was a grind mill in there. I used to feed my family from the income I used to earn from the mill. This grind mill used to serve the whole community that is nearby. Last year on February 16th, the Eritrean forces came and burnt it down. I had been using the mill for 10 years. I spent almost 600,000 birr on the house it used to be kept. I lost my properties that are estimated to be 1.7 million birr in total.
Taglabrahan also added that more than 500 residents of the vicinity are in starvation as a result of the destruction of his mill.
They killed 9 people on the day they burnt down my house, but I managed to escape. About 500 people used to get service from the mill, but now a lot of people are forced to crush their grains manually.
Amlasat Woldru, a woman who used to mill her grains at Taglabrahan's grand mill, has now been forced to use a traditional mill called medid, on which she has to crush it by hand.
As far as I know, the Eritrean troops were burning down houses, forcefully intruding into somebody's house and eating their food, raping women, and they also were beating and killing anyone they found in the streets. Because of the destruction they've done, unlike anything I've ever seen, I'm forced to crush my grains with my hand.
For the past 9 months, the man-made catastrophe has led to a severe lack of food and medication, putting the lives of many in danger. The harm being made to mothers and children of Tigray continue to affect the current and the future of Tigray and Tigrayans. In effect, Magala Hospital says the number of children born preterm is showing up a sharp increase. For more, Wintakirana reports.
Women and children of Tigray, the most vulnerable section of the society, have been severely affected by the ongoing siege. In addition to the destruction of health facilities in Tigray, severe starvation and lack of medication due to the ongoing siege is enforcing many infants to be born preterm. A pediatrician from Magala Hospital says the number of children who are born preterm due to lack of food and medication is increasing sharply.
The baby you see here is Delina. She was born before 9 months. She's getting a strict follow-up because she was born 7 months old. As you know, the community is suffering due to lack of food, and Delina's mother was severely affected by lack of food. That's why she gave birth during her 7 months of pregnancy.
The following father travels long way in search of food and medication to save his daughter's life in Magala Hospital. He urges justice to be served.
Abiy soldiers looted all my properties, my mother's holdings, my wife's gold, and every grain and properties I owned was stolen by them. They should be held accountable for their crimes they committed, for their actions had made us suffer a lot.
they should be judged by the international laws.
The all-encompassing siege in Tigray that has blocked all essential items, including food and medication, is putting the lives of many mothers and children in danger. Health professionals in Mekelle Hospital say the hospital is in a tough situation, for there is no medication and medical supplies to treat the suffering mothers and children.
This scarf was given to the hospital as a gift from the community, and we are using it for different clinical services. Since there is a severe scarcity